stuff that are going on this week. Some good news for here, YouTube just kicked over. We've got some good news for our first-time home buyers that are interested in FHA financing. So in an effort to make things a little bit more affordable for our first-time buyer, it was kind of like the catalyst to the rest of the market kind of tipping over. The FHA loans constantly, always, every FHA loan anymore has to have PMI on it. Doesn't matter how much you put down. PMI is your principal mortgage insurance, whatever. But it's basically like mortgage insurance that gets added on to your loan payment, and it has to be there with an FHA loan. So that rate just got reduced from 0.85 down to 0.55. So in essence, it's saving you like $100, $150 every month just by that reduction in that mortgage insurance rate. So that's really exciting. That's a really big win for affordability for first-time home buyers. And what we're seeing a lot right now are people are asking us, why would I buy? They feel like home prices are expensive and they feel like rates are high. But with inflation running really, really high and things are getting more and more expensive, gas, food, eggs, for gosh sakes, things like that are really increasing the cost of living. So why you would buy is to lock in your rent payment for the next 30 years. Basically, you are no longer at anybody's whim. You know what your fixed expenses are going to be, and it gives you a little bit of peace of mind and you can plan accordingly. You can also start that forced savings account, paying down that mortgage and building in your equity every month. So as it starts out, it's always a little bit depressing. You only pay down your mortgage principal by just a few hundred dollars. But as that loan term moves through, your principal contribution gets bigger and bigger. And so we have a whole series, if you want to check those out, we have a whole series of mortgage hacks on actually how to drop years off of your mortgage just by paying, even just like rounding it up to the nearest 100 or making one extra payment a year, or switching that payment into buy like every 2 weeks. So split your monthly payment, make that same payment every 2 weeks, and it's going to take years off of the term of your loan. So those are some fun tricks. Rates today, we always get the rate. Where are rates? They've actually come down the last few days. They're not down a lot, but they're down a little bit. They're at like 6.8 right now. Jumbo rates are about as high as they have been. So they're kind of going a little bit harder on the jumbo push than on the conventional rates. So the jumbo rates are still better than conventional. They're like 6.4, 6.45 today, something like that. So that's kind of interesting that those are getting some pushback. So our conventional rates, remember, the highest was like a 7.47. So 6.8, we're still okay. And remember, we have figured out ways to negotiate those rates down for you. So like we have a client who's under contract right now and the rate's going to be 4.75. So there are ways for us to beat that rate. So if you guys have questions about that, let me know. I'm happy to be that resource. So we did just get back from Family Reunion, which is our Keller Williams National Conference. And so we've gotten asked about like national picture on stuff. There's some pretty interesting things that are going on. We've talked about this before, that builders stopped building after the crash to like, when did they start building again? Maybe like 2016, 2017 is when they kind of slowly started building again, at least locally here. So we basically had 2007 to 2017, a 10-year gap in new home construction, which is why we have such a shortage of homes available today. So it's going to be really, really hard to put that inventory back into the market. So nationally, I think the number is like 3.5 million homes that were not built, that should have been built, that we needed to be built, were not built. So that's where a lot of the systemic challenges that we have right now with our inventory and pricing is coming from the homes that never were delivered to the market because of that huge crash. So it's propping us up. We're not going to see massive crashes. The way that real estate works, there's a 4% appreciation trend line. So every year, real estate on average appreciates 4%. And so there's a trend line. And every year, we're either just slightly above it and we're coming back to it, slightly below. Like it stays super, super close to the trend line. The massive bubble, we went up 22% above the trend line, and then we crashed well below the trend line. And then we spent just about 10 years making that back up to get back to the trend line. And locally, our trend line is a little bit different in Phoenix than the national news, but we've been over that trend line nationally for the last this last year, 22, I think is the third year that we were over it. So we'll see where 2023 ends up. But at the end of December, with our way high beginning and then our slower end, we're actually only $10,000 above the trend line for the average home price. So we're really, really close to coming back to where we should be. So what that tells me, those two things, there's some comfort in buying right now. So if you guys have questions, let me know. Happy to share some of those graphs so you can see it, and it might make a little bit more sense than me just drawing air graphs here. What else we did get a question about MV Realty. Have you guys heard of MV Realty? They're slightly scammy. What they really do is they're targeting people who don't speak English very well and older homeowners. And what they're doing is they're setting something into their deed and on their title report that conveys with the house. So what they're doing is saying that we will be the one that sells your house, and this contract is good for the next 40 years. If you sell it without us, you owe us 3% of whatever that price is. If you gift that house to somebody, 3% of whatever they deem the value to be. So, sorry guys. So it's really, really scary, and a lot of people are getting scammed. They don't know what they're signing, and it's getting a little bit messy. So if you have questions about that, or you've been approached by somebody from MV Realty, do not sign that agreement. You need to call an attorney. If anything, do not sign any of that. That is not in your best interest. So keep a lookout. There's some Supreme Court hearings and like some really big things going on across the country with those guys, especially Florida. There's a few states on the East Coast that have kind of joined that deal. So let me know if you have any questions on that stuff further. And then, of course, email me, chelsea@yourreddoorteamaz.com. Shoot me a text, and my number is 602-748-6136. And happy to answer any questions that you might have next Friday. So we'll see you guys later.